So, hello. This is Louis Koster. We are live. This is Facebook Live Spiritual Awakening. And so, welcome. Good morning from Australia. Good morning, good afternoon in Los Angeles and in Mexico. So, thank you for joining. I sent the invitation for the Facebook Live about an hour ago. So, who is here is fantastic. Thank you for taking up the call and being here today within this conversation. There's Rose. Hi, Rose. This is so great. Lovely. Well, I can't see you, Rose, but lovely to see all of you. And so the topic for today is, what is worry and how do I find peace? How do I find peace when there are all these thoughts that that say all kind of things about the future, that point to the future. And sometimes the thoughts, they come up with a doomsday scenario. You could actually say that a human being, maybe not so much is a Homo sapiens, but more a Homo futurus. That is to say, so it's Latin, that is to say that it is, so Homo, well, that is human being, futurus, of course, so that we are oriented around the future. We have a propensity to reach out for the future, to be occupied, concerned about the future. And often that comes back to us as a worry. People say, I worry, I have this worry. And so as a response to the question that I asked in the Facebook group, Spiritual Awakening, what is the biggest challenge you have to being happy? One of the members, her response was, and her name is Jeannie Garden. So Jeannie, thank you for your question. I'll let you know that we would have the Facebook Live today and that I would speak to your question. So Gina wrote, so her challenge to being happy is to be constantly on guard for things to worry about. Yeah, so that is, you could say that is part of the human condition. That is how we come into the world, how we start our day. We have all these thoughts, and a lot of them, they point to the future, and they express a worry, or we say that we are worried. And so thank you, Jeannie, for the authenticity and your generosity of spirit with which you have responded to the question. And so thank you for sharing yourself so openly in the Facebook group Spiritual Awakening. So worry is a very, very interesting phenomenon, and I have a lot to say about that. And maybe my approach is a bit different. It will shine a different light on what you consider to be worry. And clearly, it consumes many people's lives. So today, what I will be speaking about is the following. So first, what is worry? Like, really? Then the trap. So there is a trap here. And then, of course, the question, how to experience peace? How do I come into this place in the face of all that stuff that arises in my consciousness? How do I come to a place or a space of peace? And then fourthly, trust yourself. Okay, so let's open up this question. What is worry? What is worry? So if you look at it, worry really is just a thought arising. It's just a thought. It's a thought that you're having, and the thought points to the future. And it is not the future. But we often relate to that thought or these type of thoughts as if it is the future, as if it is already happening. And you don't see that, or we don't see that. We kind of are carried away by it. And then it starts to have its own life. It becomes an escalating reality. And it leads you to a place where you may even experience anxiety, or let's call it discomfort. It may cause stress, of course. But if you look at it, if you really, really, really look at it, it's just a thought. It's just a thought. And it is a thought that points to the future, but it is not the future. It is not the future. It's just a thought. And the interesting thing is that when you allow for that thought or these types of thoughts, when you allow for the totality of it, you'll actually get present to that it is just a thought. So that brings me to the trap. It's very interesting, is that the trap is that when you engage with that thought, with that type of a thought that points to the future and brings about all kind of doomsday scenarios, like what if, or if it would go like that, or if that were to happen, all these type of thoughts. The moment that you engage with a thought like that, the moment that you emote against it, that you have an interaction with a thought like that, it has a hold on you. It suddenly starts to inform, to shape your experience of life. And then it becomes a reality. So that is a very, very powerful insight. It's an insight, it's very subtle, but it makes an enormous insight. And if you really get that, you might see that maybe there's another way of relating to these type of thoughts. So, for instance, when you have an anticipating thought and you engage with it, it will become part of your reality. And then this is what you then express in life. So it's a bit of like, wow, there's a hook there, there's a trap there. And once you are engaged, it's part of you. It becomes more difficult to shake it off or to get rid of it. So this is not just casual talk, what I'm saying. This is very much part of, so let me say that I have a very real experience that is a demonstration of this mechanism, this dynamic, and at the same time, it will show you what's possible, and it is an amazing and stunning insight. So for many, many, many years, I had a stutter, I had a stammer, and I can tell you it really occupied or preoccupied me for many years. And I had it as a teenager, and it was just, it was a horrible experience. I was always living inside of this anticipation of a situation where I might be stuttering, and then actually it happened. Like in a classroom, I was counting the people in front of me when it was my turn to read, to speak, and it was horrible. I was, and there it was, my stuttering. And at that age, of course, of vulnerability, that was a big thing. And so at some point, what would we say, in life, moving forward in life, I kind of was able to manage that. It became so to speak, less part of my life, less obvious, but still it was there. It was always there on the background. Like it may come out, you know, I may stutter at the most unexpected moments. And then, yeah, so, and then what? And so it was always there on the background, like this looming kind of on the background threat. And so with respect to that, I never had peace in my life. It was always, you know, it might happen, and it might happen in important moments, and I really had to say something, and then I would have this stutter. So not too long ago, well, some time ago, when I was working as a doctor in a practice, and I was sitting in my consultation room, you know how a consultation room of a doctor looks like. He's got a computer. And so I was waiting, or I just finished with my patient, or was seeing a patient. And then I was looking for the next patient. And what I do as a doctor, I look at my screen and look at the name of the patient, which is then in the left corner of the screen. And I saw that the last name of this patient started with an A. Now, to you, that might not mean anything. It's like, okay, so what, Louis? But for me, in my reality, it's like, oh my God, that the last name of this person starts with an A. And I have trouble, or had trouble, or it came up for me that I might have a stammer the moment I walk into that waiting room and then call out the person's name. And I felt the butterflies in my stomach. There was like a wave of nauseousness, like an anticipating nauseousness that I might walk into this waiting room, and then I would speak the name of this person and I would fall over my words. So, but this time I thought, no, wait a moment. I'm going about this today in a different way. I'm going to allow for the totality of all these thoughts that are arising. And these were like terrible thoughts like, oh my God, I might stammer in the middle of the waiting room. People might look at me. They might say, what's that? Or, oh, that's the doctor, like with amusement or with fascination, and even like, is this man a doctor? Or how can he be a doctor? If I were to fall over my words. And so the walk from my consultation room to the waiting room, actually, that was in that practice at that time. There was a corridor, there was a narrow corridor, and maybe 3-4 seconds walk. And so I allowed for all these thoughts, and they were like truly terrible thoughts, diminishing thoughts, horrible thoughts, and allowed for the totality of them. And it was completely distinct from, or different from, how I would have gone about that in the past. I would have kind of, like managed it or something like that, like what you do when you have an unpleasant thought. You kind of push it away and then try to divert my attention to something else, and then hoping that it would all work out. So this time I did not do that. I allowed for the totality of what was arising. And so it was a 3-second walk. It felt like eternity. It was the longest 3-second walk I had ever done in my life. And by the moment that I walked into the waiting room, the name of the patient just rolled out of my mouth. It just came out of my mouth. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And so I called the patient in and I had a consultation. And later on I thought, that is just amazing. That is an amazing experience. What did just happen? Or what happened? And so my speech was natural, and I realized that there was nothing wrong with my speech all these years. Nothing. There was nothing wrong with my speech. But it was the thought that I could be or might be stammering that had me stammer. That is a stunning and amazing insight. And so that is an example of where an anticipating thought, when you, hi Santi, when you engage with it, in the moment of engagement, you become that, or it starts to shape your experience of life. And chances are that then you actually will express that. And so I have my iPad here right in front of me. I'm having a look so that I can keep myself on track here. So I realized that any ounce of engagement with the thoughts that are arising and point to the future actually made it happen. So that is just amazing. So it gets me to see that all these efforts that I know of myself in the past of engaging with these type of thoughts, what you call a worry. Now, my worry is different from your worries, or your worries are different from mine, or preoccupations. And so to realize that where you find peace, where you find yourself, is in allowing for the totality of these type of thoughts, to then to realize that it is just a thought. And then strangely enough, when you do that, something else opens up, another perspective that may give you another insight, or it will point to what is the right action to take. So I'm looking at my iPad. I'm a little bit ahead of what or what I was planning on saying, which is a great example of the difference between expressing myself and what I was planning for to happen here. So how to experience peace? That is the question when you have when there are worries. And so how you set yourself free from thoughts that point to the future, and how do you experience peace? So as what I shared with you in that example, by doing the most outrageous, counterintuitive thing, which is to allow for the totality of these type of thoughts. It takes a lot of courage, and it is definitely counterintuitive. Now, there is a reason to that being counterintuitive, which I won't have be the topic of this conversation, but it is, I can say this, that it is counterintuitive to your point of view. And that is where you are hooked, in having a point of view. So when you allow for the totality of what is arising, you might think that you are going to die or fall apart or something like that. And that is not necessarily true. So allowing for the totality of these type of thoughts, these type of doomsday scenario thoughts, not engaging with them and staying with what is arising. And that is key. You stay with it. You stay with it. You stay with it. You stay with it. So you expand yourself being with it. You stay with it. In doing so, you become aware of your attachments. And you become of anything that still has you hooked to wanting things to be a certain way. But that happens unwillingly. It's not like I'm going to do this now. That is what happens in the process of allowing for the totality of what is arising as your thoughts. And in this case, thoughts that point to the future. So you could say that peace is always available when you allow and let be of anything that arises as your thoughts, even the most dreadful thought. Peace is always available. You will never find a solution by engaging with what is arising. That's not where you find your peace. In fact, it gets you more worked up. It gets you in an escalating path where there is no solution, and it doesn't tell you what is true or what is not true. And of course, we all are the tendency to interact and look for a solution when something arises as our thoughts that is either unwholesome, unpleasant, or something like that. But that's not where you find the solution. The solution is always in another dimension than where you experience the problem. So then the last part or piece of this that I wanted to share with you is trusting yourself. You could say that nothing, truly nothing, is bigger than you are. You are not going to die or fall apart when you allow for what is arising as your thoughts. And when you do so, like when you do allow for the totality of what is arising, something will open up as a new perspective and will point to what is the right action to take. And that is the miraculous evolution of this. And that insight, that revelation of what's next, what is the right thing for you to do, is where you are inspired by your own being, that tells you what is the right thing to do, what is in keeping with your true nature. And that is not off the thinking. So, but the only way to get into that dimension where you are in touch with the truth that you are is by allowing for the totality of what is arising. Now, when you take this on as a journey, as a first step, it will be tumultuous. You might think, where is this going to? Where is this leading to? I don't feel great when I do that, or I don't now experience peace when I do that. It is a practice. In fact, what you're doing is you are practicing being. You're practicing allowing for the totality of what is arising in your consciousness. And I promise you that when you take that on as a journey, that you will get in touch with your true nature. You will get in touch with a dimension beyond all of this. And that is the value of this, of what I'm sharing here with you. And that's how I see what spiritual awakening is. So, are there any questions or comments? I'm now looking here at Angela, ¿cómo estás? Thank you for joining. Santi, thank you, good morning. Great to see you. Thank you, Santi. And thank you, Angela, for joining the Facebook Live. Great, so I would like to thank Jeannie for sharing your comment with us in the Facebook Live, and let her know beforehand that I will be speaking to her question, and that is what I will be doing in the future, to look at the comments and then take one comment or question and then dedicate a Facebook Live to that question or comment. And so I want to thank you for your attention and for tuning into this Facebook Live, Spiritual Awakening. Please let me know that something has opened up for you. If this is the first time that you see me, welcome to the Facebook community Spiritual Awakening, where I share with you my latest insights in what it is to be in touch with your true nature and to connect and to know the truth of who you really are. So thank you for being part of this conversation and of this ongoing exploration of life. Until the next time.